Um, Welcome to a very special panel discussion on the challenges facing our industry. Most of you know me as the technical editor for Motor Age Magazine. This is my first webinar that you've seen me on, but really not here tonight in the official capacity as much as I am just another part of this business that we all love and have been in for quite a while, at least a lot of us have. I spent over 35 years as a tech, and with a wrench in my hand, and I think we're still talking about a lot of the same issues everywhere I go that we've been talking about since I've been in the business. Before I allow the panelists to introduce themselves, I want to say that we as individuals have a very real interest in the outcomes, and we need to take some personal responsibility, for the challenges that we face. That term, the industry, well, there's no such person as the industry. We are the industry. I am the industry. My panel members are the industry, and those of you who are watching now live and will be watching the recorded version, we are the industry. The same characteristics that made our panelists and a lot of you watching successful business owners and shop owners are also some of the characteristics that can hinder us overcoming some of these challenges. We don't like to be told what to do. It's that independent and entrepreneurial spirit that got you where you are. But sometimes we're going to have to choke on it a little bit and do what's needed to avoid some of the issues going forward. One thing my daddy used to tell me, kind of one of those little bits of wisdom I hold on to, you can turn an ocean liner, make a U-turn, but you can't do it with one big spin of the wheel. You got to do it one little nudge at a time. And we've had some past discussions. Hopefully this one will have a little bit of difference, with not just discussions, but maybe a few practical applications that you who are watching can take tomorrow and maybe make that little change in your own little corner of the world. So before I start, after my panelists with the hard stuff, I'm going to go right across the bottom of my screen, and we're going to start with Mr. Donnie Seifert. Donnie, please introduce yourself to those who are watching. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and
okay, thanks, Pete. Yeah, Donnie Seifert. My dad and I own Seifert Automotive in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, and we have been doing general repair and hot rods since 1961. I haven't been there that long, obviously, because I'm just not quite that old, but close. And I also am involved with NATEF and NASTAF, and I'm on ASA's board as well. So education is a passion of mine, and I like to be involved with it whenever I can have the opportunity. I also do some teaching. I do in-service training for journeyman technicians primarily, and I try to work with schools when I can. Did a lot with Skills USA for a lot of years until there just got to be too many things on my plate to do that anymore.
Yeah, you're an educator's best dream, right?
Yeah.
The involvement that you have on education, certainly. Another gentleman I'll introduce next, or allow him to introduce himself next. Of course, a lot of you know George Menchu, noted instructor, tech, business owner, nationally renowned trainer. That's George. I just kind of introduced you for yourself, but I'm going to let you to expand on that. So.
I don't know if I can add anything to that. I went to high school, Temple, Texas, took auto mechanics for 2 years, started working on cars. I like to say I studied electronics at the University of Radio Shack. When you talk about that entrepreneurial spirit, that is one of the great things about automotive. You want to learn something, you want to do it, you just got to have the motivation to go for it. And it's just been a wonderful thing to be involved in. At some point I started AES, and some of you probably know, my goal was to hook up an oscilloscope to a car, so I made a test lead kit and started AES, and I'm still here, and I'm very honored to be here with everybody.
Well, George, I certainly appreciate you taking the time to join this panel. And before I move on to the next guest, I got to say, there are a lot of folks I've been lucky enough to meet in the course of the 3.5 years that I've been with the magazine, who are just like the folks that you're seeing here on the panel. They're very dedicated, have a passion for the industry. So certainly tonight we're not trying to say that that's not the case. There's a lot of you out there, and there's just not enough room on one little Google Hangout to include you all. My next guest is Rick Escalambre. Rick, noted instructor. Let's bring him up. And Rick? A little technical difficulties there on Rick's end. There he is. Okay. Rick, can you hear us okay? I think you have some technical difficulties there with Rick. We'll see if we can come back to him here in a moment. We'll move on to Trish Sarator with NATEF. Did I say that right, Trish? The last name, Dr. Constant?
You did, yes. Thank you.
Okay. So why don't you tell everybody here all about yourself?
Sure. As Pete said, I'm Trish Sarator. I'm the president of NATEF, and I have been with ASE and NATEF for 25 years. And I'm not an educator, and I'm not a technician, but I like to think of myself as an advocate for both of those, given my career and here at ASE and what we're doing. And like George, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be engaged in this discussion, which I think is very significant. So thanks for including us.
Now, Trish, thank you for taking the time. Next on the list, certainly, not the least, but my good friend Scott Brown. Many of you know Scott from his role at ITN, but that's just a piece of it. Scott, tell us all about yourself.
Oh, hi, Pete. Thanks for inviting me here. Yes, my name is Scott Brown, and I am the president of the International Automotive Technicians Network, and I've been working with that network since its existence, and started in 1995. But where I came from is, when I was in high school, I was really into automobiles, and that was when the emission controls were coming on board. And after leaving high school, I went to tech school. Got out of tech school, started working in an independent store, and started collecting every bit of knowledge I can gain. And actually ran into a guy at a trade show after going through a bunch of electronics training, and I was trying to figure out how to hook up my fluke meter or fluke scope to a computer. And that's where I ran into George Minshew, and he kind of introduced me to the modem world. So anyways, I also, am, in addition to my role at IATN, I serve on the board of directors for NASDAQ, and I'm also a independent shop owner here in Southern California. So I have a pretty good feel for what's going on, the boots on the ground perspective, and I look forward to sharing my perspective and anything I can do to help further this industry. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. And we're going to try it one more time here with Rick to see if we can pull him up. I know he's having some issues. It's unfortunate. And fellas who are watching you, I apologize for that. There he comes back again. Can you hear us okay, Rick? A big thumbs up if you can hear me. I don't know what he's going on there. It's unfortunate, but that's okay. Sorry, Rick. I don't know what's going on. All right. Let's get started. I don't want to take up a lot of everybody's time. I do have some points I want to get over. I guess one of the things that started this for me was a comment that Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs made. I guess now it's been a while back. I found it very intriguing and very interesting, and then I got talking with a lot of the folks that you see here tonight on the panel and others about some of these issues. But he said that we are a nation spending a lot of money educating kids who can't pay it back for jobs that no longer exist. And what he's referring to is the growing skills gap that's not just facing our industry, but every technical industry in the U.S. marketplace. And so that's one factor. There's a lot of competition to attract young blood in our organization, and to our industry, rather. And why is that important? Well, I will give out a few quick stats here. Nearly half of the automotive technician workforce is over the age of 45. Now think about it. I mean, for me personally, I was mid-50s, early 50s when I got out of the bays. Very fortunate, and be the first one to admit it, to come to work for Motor Age. But there gets to the point in your career, if you're a line tech trying to make a living on flat rate, you slow down. You can't do the things the younger guys can do. That's just the fact of life. So they're starting to weed out of the system. Let's just say if they do go to retirement, we're looking at a 20-year period where that group of techs is going to be gone and out of the market. To the credit of the educators present, we are producing more than enough students from the vocational programs to make up for that attrition. But the problem is, or the issue is, or the challenge is, however you want to look at it, a new young tech coming into the field cannot replace on an equal basis a tech that's got 30 years experience. We're losing experience as well as the bodies. Now, of those young men and women who are entering the field, many of them enter the field or don't bother going into the field at all after graduation. They find out that they can get a better job working at some other industry, and they go straight to that. Or they come into our field, and in many cases, instead of being mentored and nurtured, they're the shop gophers. They're getting minimum or low wage. They're taking out the trash, cleaning the bathrooms. And that $20,000 or $30,000 they spent getting that 2-year education is not doing it for them. So the reality is, the last figure I saw was nearly 60% of the new techs that do come into our field leave again shortly thereafter. So there's a challenge. There's going to be a critical mass point where we just physically don't have enough competent diagnostic technicians available to fix the demand. Of course, that could change a lot of things in the industry. You might be able to charge a lot more money. You may have a much bigger waiting list, but there's going to be shops out there that will also have to close their doors because they physically don't have the bodies to staff them. So before we tackle a lot of the hard stuff, let me just say at the beginning, I'm not trying to paint a real negative picture. I love this industry. It's done a lot for me. It's always allowed me to take care of my family. Didn't get rich. The median income for techs in this country is just under $40,000 a year. I was a little bit above that, so I consider myself lucky. And I've learned a lot of skills that I've been able to apply to other areas of my life in the process. So the first question, with all that said, the first question I'm going to go right down the panel and ask, starting with Donnie, is, for those who are watching and new to our field, or those who are watching and considering entering our field, what positives about our industry would you like to offer? So Donnie, we'll start with you. What positive comments would you offer a young person considering our industry as a career?
Well, I guess I got the softball since I'm going first, but I think that you will never not have a job if you're good at what you do. There's always somebody looking for help, and there are lots of industries, and we have lots of customers who've gone between jobs and have spent months looking for a job. That does not happen in the automotive industry. You go from one day to the next. I think that's a great thing. The other great thing about this is you get to work in an environment where the people that you're working with, they think the same way you do for the most part because they all do the same job. And in our shop, you really become a family. My guys have been working with us 20 plus years, and it's nice. You go to work every day. You spend more time here than you do at home with your family, and so it's nice to have a family on both ends. So I think that's a great thing that a lot of other jobs just don't offer.
Actually, very good comments all. George, how about you? What can you add to that?
When I was coming back from Orlando just recently, I was on an airplane. I was sitting next to a guy who was part of a trade association for robotics, and we were talking about automotive and robotics. And one of the exciting things about automotive, it is so high tech, it is so. Where does anyone get such an opportunity to get involved in something like that? Sure, it's got its difficulties, but I've got a 9-year-old at home, and I think, to me, I just see a lot of great joy in the idea of him getting involved in something that is cutting edge. So, if you're a young student, you're going to become a master of networks. You're going to become a master of software, the dynamics of software, electronics, mechanics, and in the end result, you know, you look at some of these technicians, and many you guys, and so many people are probably listening right now. Look at their skill set that they have developed. Sure, it might not be in the best environment, but when it comes to what you get to do and how difficult it is, it gives an opportunity for those who are motivated. I think it's a great opportunity, exciting one.
Now, Rick, you have a unique viewpoint there. We're going to try you again, see if we can get your audio working. You know, as a hands-on instructor, these are questions I'm sure that you're facing every day. Do you have any comments that you can add? What do you tell your students about the positives of our industry? Okay, I'm not sure what the problem is with Rick's connection there, but Trish, we're going to move on. And you are in a similar position. You work a lot with industry and education, you know, to keep them partnering together and support, you know, the efforts of the folks who are charged with raising the next generation. You know, what do you see as some of the positives that they can use to encourage youngsters to enter the programs?
Well, I'm going to key off what Donnie said, and first thing I always tell parents and kids is auto repair is never going to be outsourced. They may diagnose it somewhere else in the world, but when that brake pad needs to be replaced, or the oil needs to be put in the engine, or a new tire, or anything, that's going to happen right locally. So the fact that you're going to have a job, and you can have that job anywhere you want in the country, in any climate, in any kind of business, is an important aspect. I'm a girl, so I'm gonna say, girls, this is a great opportunity. I always mention that there are lots of jobs. If you don't want to be a technician, there's service writer, there's parts, there's trainers, so the opportunity and the breadth of what's available in our industry is just amazing. And then, frankly, there's hot cars. I mean, who wants to not work on something that's got 400 horsepower and can go 0 to 60 in 30 seconds? I mean, stuff, and I think that's exciting. And sometimes we lose sight of why we are involved in this. Yes, we want to fix things, but part of it is just that passion for that amazing automobile.
Yeah, actually, I think it's a very valid point, and I'm going to go ahead and let Scott take over that, because I know he usually has some interesting things coming there through his shop. I know you're at the end of the line there, Scott. What can you add to that?
Well, you know, what I do recommend to folks when they're coming into the industry, you know, I do deal with a number of individuals at different levels of the industry. And what I do recommend is that make sure you hone your analytical skills. Maybe study a little bit of you know, programming type design. Learn, you know, get all your computer skills in line, because there are other opportunities in this industry. So you may come in and be an excellent tech, but you may move up and become a shop owner or a shop manager, or, you know, at some other level of the industry. So keep your eyes open, keep your skills sharp, and you'll succeed. And, you know, the biggest part of solving a problem, a challenging problem, is that gratification that you get from that. The other big challenge, of course, is getting paid for that. So being in the right environment when you do enter the workforce is really critical. And so there are a number of elements that'll feed this to make it all work together. So keep your eyes open. You're always learning. You're not, when you're working during the day, you know, you're thinking about cars. Well, even when you're leaving work or off hours, you're thinking about other technologies related to your field, and you don't want to let that go away, and always further to push yourself so that you can, you know, be the best that you can be.
Yeah, great comments all, and to kind of recap, I mean, we have the technology unlike no other in history. Some very exciting things happening in the automotive industry at the moment that will challenge those who are into that kind of thing. And I think everyone here kind of alluded to the same thing as well. I think all of us have a passion for what we do. For techs, I know for me, it was always the challenge and fixing something that maybe somebody else couldn't fix or was having difficulty with. Being able to take that broken machine, whether it was an electrical issue or mechanical issue or whatever the case might be, and at the end of the day have it whole and working and safe, for the people that were going to rely on that transportation. So for the youngsters there who have those skills and that passion, there certainly is enough attractive here. And I want to cap too on what Scott said. There was a local instructor that was very adamant about telling all of his students, maybe you won't be a tech, but if you're going to do anything in the automobile industry, you need to talk car. You need to be able, even in what I do now, I think there's a lot of journalists who do what we do at the magazine, but they don't talk car. They have their formal training in a field unrelated. And to try to connect with the folks like you who are watching and the folks that are here on the panel, you got to talk car. If you're going to work in a parts store, if you're going to work at a dealership service counter, whatever the case might be, even if you're the receptionist, at a large dealership, you got to be able to talk cars. So all of that is worthwhile in and of itself. Thanks everybody for your comments on that. We'll move on to the next question. As I alluded to earlier in my opening comments, the workforce is getting gray, and we're really not putting in the front end what we needed on the back end. While there may not be right this instant a problem, and I'm going to start with Scott and work my way back the other way, would you agree that there's currently a clear and present danger that we're going to run in a situation where we will be short of trained, qualified people that can actually fix the high technology systems that you've all been talking about? Scott, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, the technology coming on board, is rising exponentially, and that, of course, is going to present a number of challenges. And it's been going on for some time now, but it's even getting more and more critical with the electric propulsion systems being implemented on the vehicles. The requirements are very, very high, and I do see a problem. And I see that we're not attracting high-level folks because they're a lot of times they're not getting an appreciable amount of income for the skill level that's being required. And I think that we can all work together to try to reach out to the rest of the industry to kind of get the folks that don't quite get it to understand how critical this is and how we need to raise the bar and make it a worthy investment. A lot of times a guy will go to work in a shop and he's required to bring on a lot of the diagnostic tools and stuff, which is insane. And Donnie probably knows this more than anybody, it's impossible for a technician to supply those tools, but that's the mentality that's out there at some levels. And it's very, very challenging because that's what feeds our industry.
Yeah. Is there something special, Scott, that you guys do in your shop when you're mentoring a new technician?
Well, it's tough. We've grown our own over the years, but again, like you were saying, we had Donnie said he's got guys that were 20, 30 years. We had those guys in our shops, and then they've moved on. They've retired.
Sure.
And it's tough to find a guy that could come in and pick up where they're going. We continuously educate our technicians in the shop. I mean, they are going to classes all the time.
Sure.
And staying up on things. So it's definitely a challenge to replace that slot, which is why we're here talking about this.
Yeah. So Trish, what kind of comments would you see on that? I mean, you probably see a more industry-wide picture and get the feedback from the educators as well. And what are you seeing when it comes to that critical shortage point?
I would agree. I don't think there's a shortage of bodies. We have students in programs all across the country that are graduating and coming out into the workforce. The issue becomes, how do we engage them when they're ready to come into the workforce to make it a positive experience? And I think we all alluded to that. And some of it's money, and some of it's the culture of our industry and flat rate, and helping young people understand that as a work concept. We struggle with competition from other industries that are a little cleaner, a little bit more you wear khakis to work as opposed to a uniform. So we're suffering from that perception again. I think, and Scott said the same thing, that we've got shops and we've got employers who are doing all the right things, and we need to get the word out to the rest of them that if we're going to have people enter our industry and stay, and I think the important word here is stay, we're going to have to work at how we recruit and how we retain and how we interact with this very different employee from the ones that we've had for 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah, and Trish, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I am curious, does your organization, or are you aware of any other statistics? Like I mentioned, I found sources that said up to 60% of those students who do enter the shops nationwide, leave. Do you have any other insights as to the reasons that these youngsters are giving for leaving?
I don't, other than what I'm hearing from how it relates to students of all ages across all occupations, where the expectation is I don't live to work anymore. I work to live. And
Sure.
if I don't like the job, I'm going to leave, and I'm not going to really tell the guy. I'm just going to walk out. We hear, and everyone's heard that statistic. A kid's going to have 8 jobs in his career. So I think we have a very unsettled young workforce. They don't feel they have to stay in the same job for 20 years, and they feel that if they don't like it in the first 2 days, or they don't get that attaboy or that trophy, then that's not the right place for them. So while I don't have statistics that support yours, Pete, I can certainly see, having 2 teenage children of my own, what you're referring to.
Yeah, good points. Good points. Yeah, George, I'm going to go ahead and let you take over from that point. What other comments can you offer? What are your feelings on this shortage?
Well, yeah, I think it's a very difficult situation. I really don't know how to respond, but I just look at the big dynamics. Along with the shortage is opportunities for those who are motivated and willing to put in the effort. I mean, if you look at it today, I think we've got a lot of folks that are becoming mobile techs. They're good techs. They're not getting the pay they want. They become mobile techs so they can service all these shops that aren't getting into all the high technology.
Right.
So, there's lots of opportunities out there, and things are developing and changing. And, it's kind of a catch-22. The greatest thing about technology is it opens the door of opportunity for those who are motivated. So we're going to go through these, we're probably going to see a lot of waving here, where we're going to have a shortage, and it's going to be hard to get that good guy into my shop, for example, because he's going to be hard to pull away from someone else. But I think, looking at the big picture here, this get together here, and what you've been doing, a lot of your work, Pete, opens the door for us marketing automotive and showing what a great opportunity it is. And just like any industry, when there's opportunity there, and if we can let the world know about it, people will come in to fill it. It's kind of how I feel. Will it happen? It's up to us, I think, as you said in your introductory statement.
Yeah. All right, Donnie, again, you have, with your roles with ASA, and for those who aren't watching, that's an organization that is a huge supporter of the independent shops in the country. Does a lot of work both on Capitol Hill to protect their interests, and right there at the grassroots level, providing them with the tools that they need to make their businesses succeed. So, Donnie, with both those perspectives, and an industry-wide and as a shop owner, what are your thoughts on the technician shortage?
Well, I guess the big thing, are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
I was muting back and forth just in case they're vacuuming in here. But I think that a lot of what the shame is that a lot of kids are coming out of programs, and as Trish alluded to, and Scott, they're not getting integrated, and they're doing jobs that, let's face it, they didn't sign on for. But we have that old school mentality of, well, by golly, I had to sweep the floors when I started out. And I think that that's one of the things that, as shop owners, we have to just let go of that, and we need to hire somebody to do that stuff and start teaching these kids from day one. And I teach a diagnostics class where I encourage journeyman technicians to start using the young guys from the very first day as part of their diagnostic process, because it helps them to make more money, and it helps the young guy to get engaged in the diagnostic process where there's no risk. They're not in a situation like, oh man, I got to solve this problem. They're working with the journeyman technician, and they learn the way that he thinks and what his processes are. So I think that the real reason we have such a potential shortage is because we just don't know how to bring them into our business and make them part of that. And you know, we've got the generational thing certainly to work out, but I think the biggest problem is that they've got all this debt, and they come to us a lot of times without the skills that they can make money to begin with, and that's our fault. I think NATEF's done a fabulous job of addressing that, so that when they come out of these programs, they're more rounded in the areas where they can immediately make money, because we can't teach a kid in 2 or 4 years how to be a diagnostic technician. Right. So we have to teach them how to generate income for themselves and for the business, and then we can afford to teach them in service as we go along. At least that's my take.
Yeah. I want to try to recap this, some, and I want everybody to chime in as you see fit here, because I think this is really important. One of the things I expressed to all the panelists and to the folks who are watching, didn't want to just rehash the same old thing that you've heard time and time again. We want to try to offer some practical solutions. So one of the things that I'm hearing, as I mentioned, you can't replace or expect to replace an experienced tech with a guy fresh out of school. I was recently in Orlando with George at an event, lots of shop owners, lots of them commenting on how they're having a tough time finding new people. And one of my very first responses to them is, have you been involved in your local vocational program? Have you been to your local automotive program, whether it's at the local high school or whether it's at the secondary school? Because if you're not, you're missing out on an excellent opportunity. If I was a shop owner, that's my farm team. That's where I'm going to be looking for the talent. And I have an opportunity to put in input if I'm not happy with the skill sets that are coming out of that program. To NATEF's benefit, to ASE's benefit, ASA's, all the big organizations have programs that have made efforts to improve both sides of this issue. But as many, I think you will agree, this has got to change right at the street level. As Donnie pointed out, shop owners have different approaches. Some of us are still living in the Stone Age, where we take this kid fresh out of school, we don't recognize the fact that he's spent a huge sum of money to take that program, to graduate from that program. He's making a huge investment in a set of tools for somebody who's still in their 20s. He may have a family started. That's not an unusual situation today. And he's got to be able to feed that family. And I got to tell you, for the whole 35 years that I did this work, the only reason, except for one instance, which I won't tie up tonight, but the only reason I ever left a shop that I worked for was I could not feed my family on the work that was coming in the door. Okay. So if I'm an experienced tech with some skills and I'm leaving because I can't make no money in your place, how are you going to expect that youngster that you're letting him be the shop gopher for all the other techs, or you're letting that one disgruntled guy in the back of your shop poison that young mind with all the things that he doesn't like about his job? These are the kind of things that you as shop owners can change right now. You can go into your shop tomorrow morning and instill a whole new way of looking at things if you want to attract that kind of talent. But you're going to have to mentor that kid. You're going to have to make sure that he's not poisoned by those who are already working there. You've got to create that environment where he has a chance to take care of his bills and feed his family if he has one. To me, that's something that, and please, you guys that are part of the panel, chime right in there if I'm off course or something. But I think a lot of the reasons that we lose the talented youngsters that are coming to our industry is because there's another industry guy out there waving a lot more money under his nose, better benefits. Many of you don't even offer any kind of benefits to your employees. And I get that. Running a business is not the easiest thing in the world to do. It's got challenges all of its own. But if you're going to succeed in the future, if you're going to meet the new dynamics that this industry is changing into, you're going to have to find another way to do it other than the way Pa did or Grandpa did when we first opened the doors. Okay, Is that a a fair statement for you guys, do you think?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good, Pete. I'll chime in on one other thing. I'd like to just comment that Donnie did bring up something really interesting in that he's teaching his the journeyman diagnostic guys to instantly start working with the new young apprentice.
Yes.
I think that's a really good model. One, because these guys are very green and they may be a little nervous and uncomfortable in this environment. And if they're working closely with the guy that's seasoned, they're going to get cultured in the right manner. And you're essentially, from the business owner's perspective, you're growing your workforce in doing that. It is taking an investment, but maybe you need to look at your business plan a little bit differently and understand that these challenges are real, and you're going to have to think outside the box to bring those solutions to the forefront. So I really I thank you for sharing that, Donnie. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
With the mentoring, and that's what both Scott and Donnie were talking about, we find that students who have mentors will stay in the industry better because they've had that role model. They might not stay at that location, and that's for lots of reasons, but if they have a mentor, and a good one, and one that's been trained or at least has the compassion and the understanding of how to deal with a young person in the workforce, then there's a better chance that that individual is going to stay our industry. And Pete, you made the point about those folks leaving the industry that have that experience. Here's the opportunity to capture that experience and match it to that young person, so we don't lose the experience, but and we get that young person excited about working in our business. It might mean, as Scott alluded to, you kind of have to change your pay plan a little bit to compensate for some things like that. But boy, think about what you're doing. You're using the knowledge and the skill you've already paid for all those years with that technician who's been with you with the level of experience, and you're making it happen for that young person. So I encourage everyone to either look into a mentoring program or contact NATEF and AYES, and we'll see if we can work with you and help you out with a mentor program, because it's a key component of that recruitment retention issue that we're dealing with.
Yeah, no, agreed. When I go to some of the schools in the area and I talk to the kids, I mean, it's one of the things they love. They love seeing the shop owners come in. They love having the opportunity to go out and work next to an experienced tech. But, there's the other side of the coin to that. And that's, I think, one of the things, at least in my own mind, all of the challenges that are facing our industry have become so intertwined that you can't effectively deal with one without at least touching into another. And another that I'm just going to hype on, because it's really not the subject of tonight's discussion, is flat rate pay systems. I mean, again, as I got to be an older tech, more versed in the diagnostic end of it, I found myself being assigned those types of challenges and being paid the 5/10 an hour, for a 2 or 3 hour time frame, while the younger guy with fewer tools, less experience, is doing the quote-unquote gravy work. And a lot of technicians will tell you that they feel that they're actually being penalized for their experience and the investment, as Scott had mentioned too, the investment that they're making personally in some of these very expensive pieces of diagnostic equipment. They don't feel that they're getting the ROI. But to their credit, they're still doing it because they love what they do, and they're the few. As George pointed out, that's actually opened up almost a whole new industry developing as part of our overall group, and that's the mobile diag tech. The guy who makes that money. And is going to come in and tell you what's wrong with the car that your staff couldn't find. But on the business side, is that good for you? Is that not? That's what some of the things you have to look at. But I think we've touched on a few areas here on where the shop, as we pointed out, where the shop owner himself has to get out there and get and make some changes in how he views his business if he wants to stay in business. I personally see that if we continue on the route we are, again, it'd just be a simple matter that you don't have the bodies to fill the bays, to handle the workload you need to handle to keep your doors open, even on the basic stuff. If we don't encourage enough young people to enter and show them it's a career that they can make a living at and be happy at and enjoy, as many of us have, then they're not going to stay. And and we're going to have problems. I foresee that coming. So we have to change it. Forgive me, not we, me, you has to change that mentality if we're going to make this different. Now, on the other side of that coin is the educational side. Yes, if you're having trouble finding a shop owner or finding techs for your shop, and you're not going to your local vocational program, if you're not involved with Industry Advisory Council, well, shame on you. I mean, that's be the first thing I tell you. But often I hear of educators who are telling us that we're not getting students or we're not getting industry involvement, but they haven't left their classrooms in the last 10 years. So educators that are out there watching, if you're complaining that you don't have the dynamic Industry Advisory Council that you'd like to have, but you haven't gone out lately to introduce yourself to the shops, you too have to change how you view things. You need to get out and go shake some hands and pound some pavement to find those shop owners and show them, you know, what your kids can do for them. And I can't even say kids. A lot of these students are, you know, grown men, grown women, you know, and should be treated as such. Whew. Better get off my soapbox. Don't want to run us too late.
Hey, Pete, I would like to throw something in there. Kind of bring those two together. It was a couple years ago. I was up at Portland at one of the colleges there, and I was standing in the background as they were doing some type of ceremony, and I was looking at all the technicians that the students. And, you know, I was just looking at how motivated. You could just see the motivation out of these guys. And it was very inspiring. I mean, we talk about it's hard to find these guys. Well, man, there was a whole pack of them right there.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, when it comes back to the shop owner, if you don't know who those guys are, you're not going to get them. And so if you're worried about that next generation, man, you've got to make that connection. You've got to meet these kids when they're young and help them develop. Because, again, you know, when you get these guys that are on the cutting edge and they're good, they're the best out of the class. If you've never met them, whoever has is going to get them.
Yeah,
so
it's going to win.
I just want to bring that up.
Absolutely, no question. And I got to interject here very quickly too. I attended one of the Skills USA competitions, the national competitions, and for those of you watching not familiar with that, it's a public program covering nearly every trade you can think of: auto mechanics, collision repair, baking, cosmetology. I mean, you name it. It's like the size of 3 football fields at Kansas City where it was held when I went. And when you go to the opening ceremonies there, you see the excitement in these kids from every trade, all of these programs. Yes, granted, they're the top in their states that come to this program, but the electricity and the excitement and the passion that they had, I mean, it was like going to a rock concert to see these kids going on. So don't badmouth the next generation until you've gone, again, to your local VOTEC and you've seen. This is not, and this is the issue that we have in this country where parents are telling their children that you have to have a college degree in order to be successful in life. That's not true. That's not true. I don't have a college degree. I went for a year, but I went to work on motorcycles and ended up in cars. I loved working with my hands. And as George pointed out, and others have pointed out, and as my dad told me years ago, if you can work with your hands, you'll always have work. As Trish said, this is not a job that can be outsourced. We're not sending cars overseas to get fixed and bring them back.
And life in a cubicle is not for everybody.
That's very true. But it is also, we have to change that image where the vocational program is where those who can't cut it go. Because, again, that is something that is just not true. And if you go to some of these programs in your area, you're going to see that that's not true. There's some very talented youngsters out there. Okay. Well, again, I don't want to run this out too late. I'm not even sure. Yeah, we've been on for a little bit. I want to start working towards the closing part of this. I want to go down the panel, and I'm going to start at Donnie's end first. As I promised, we wanted to come up with some action plans, if you will, that people can take with them tomorrow or the day after they watch this video, if they watch it after it's been aired, to make that little change in their little corner of the world. Where can they put the rubber to the road? Where can they get down to the street level and make a change? So, Donnie, if you had to tell a technician, we'll start with them, if there's a technician that you could talk to and say, you want to make our industry better for everyone and for yourself, here's what you can do tomorrow to do that, what would you tell them?
Well, I would say first and foremost, represent yourself well. I see a lot of techs because I do a lot of teaching, and a lot of them, I think they think they're second-class citizens for some reason, and that's just not true. It's a very hard-earned skill set, and they're just as valuable in their community as any other professional, whether that be a lawyer or a doctor. Let's face it, you can't fix a patient if you can't get the patient to the hospital. And who gets that done? We do. And you know, our models change every single year, so it's a tough job. And you just need to feel that what you do is important. And I think you need to get out involved in your community and talk to kids. You don't have to go out and say, oh, you need to work on cars. I coach a soccer team, and my boys always see me show up with a different car because, you know, I got a scan tool mounted over here or something like that. Trying to figure out what's wrong with it. And they're always like, well, what are you doing today? You know, and so I actually have one kid who wants to come down and work with us in the summer just so he can see what goes on. And so I think that's really a great opportunity just for them to see that you're just like anybody else. And whether you have a college degree or not, it's a very difficult job that takes some real skills. And I think that's what techs need to do, is just hold their head high and say, I repair cars for a living.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I can't count the number of times where I've been in a social environment and I'm asked what I did and told them that, you know, I was a mechanic, and you could just see that, you know, oh, and you know, so yes, but that perception is not always unfounded. I mean, it's something that we have to change in the interaction with our customers. So I think you brought a valid point there. To me, as a tech, you have to be professional. You have to look professional. You have to act professional, and you have to treat your customers professionally. And if you do that, then they're going to look at you professionally. George, how about you? What would you tell a tech if he can do tomorrow, make a difference?
You know, kind of building off of what Donnie said there, you know, for me, I look at the young folks, I look at my experience, and I like to say this a lot, is learn to learn. Walk in a shop every day and say, I'm a professional learner, that's what I do for a living, and make that investment in yourself. That's one. Number two is realize how you do fit into society. Our transportation is so important to the fundamental fabric of society. I mean, everybody is dependent on it, and that means they're dependent on you to be able to do your job and to do it well. I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, we should stand up fairly high in society. I mean, it depends on us.
Sure.
And then third is I think that you know, you just got to keep trying. I mean, the opportunities are here within industry. So you come into it and it might be difficult in the beginning, but you've got to look at it like it is an open door for creativity. I mean, what other industry could be so cutting edge as this one is, and so integrated into society where you can literally make your own pathway? I mean, look at, you know, for myself, I look at what I've been able to do. I got to sit down and dream of what I wanted to do, and I had the opportunity to do it. I mean, this is a great opportunity for those who are motivated, and that's, I think that's the thing is, you know, you go to these trade shows and you get around people who are excited. That's what we need to get out there. And we also need to put it in a perspective that shows where we do fit into society. And I think it's going to be a lot easier. Again, you know, when I was talking to the guy with the head of the robotics trade organization, robotics, cutting edge, automobiles, cutting edge. I mean, and now they're coming together. What a cool thing to be involved in. So that's, I just try to get them excited. This is a very exciting place to be.
Yeah, George, and I know one of the things that I got to share that George shared with me that really struck home with me. You know, as you develop your skills as a diagnostician, as a troubleshooter, as someone who can analyze these newer systems, understand them, and fix them, the skill sets that you have to develop in order to do that are so usable in other areas of your life. I know George will tell you, you know, he credits a lot of his success in business to the same skills that he learned as a technician, and he passes that along eloquently in a lot of his training programs. If you ever get a chance to see him, you know, be sure that you do. Now, Trish, we're going to move over to you. Again, a lot of your background is more on the educational side, but if you're out there in the field at one of these events and you meet a group of technicians, what are you going to tell them that they can do tomorrow that will have an impact on how this industry goes forward?
I'm going to tell them to give back. I mean, if you look around this table and in this panel, we have all been giving back for many, many years because we have a passion for our industry. And, you know, we hear all around the country about associations, you know, not having enough members and people not joining. So my message to technicians is to get involved and join the organizations that are in our industry, get involved, make a difference, because it won't change if you don't step up and make it happen.
That's awesome. I really love that comment. You know, you got to give back. And it's even on the shop floor. If your shop has hired a new guy, fresh out of school, and he wants to learn, then take the time to help him out. Yeah, I know, you're on flat rate, so was I. You know, but the benefits that you're going to have overall far outweigh what you may, you know, lose in a couple of bucks. Certainly don't poison the guy. If you're having a bad day, you know, don't take out your gripes and complaints on the newbies. Don't treat him like a gopher. You know, can treat him like the professional that you want to be treated as. And as Trish pointed out, get involved. Even if you go get involved with the advisory council, or you help out with Skills USA, or you join the trade associations and you become involved in what they're doing, whatever the case might be. That was some very good comments. Thank you, Trish. Scott, you're up, buddy. What were you going to tell a tech?
Well, I've got to adjust my mic here again. I had to turn that down. You know, what I would, or what I normally do is I try to tell people that they need to make sure that they have the right perspective, or gather a perspective from various angles. Look at, you know, how do you look to the customer? How do you look to your boss? But the first thing I'd like to kind of open up with is that there's a phrase that I will steal from a friend of ours, Mark Warren, and he says that, you know, the definition of experience, which we all have tons and tons of experience, which sometimes sounds good, but the definition of experience, according to him, it's what you got when you didn't get what you wanted. So you're going to go through this career perhaps failing, or perhaps not doing a good job up front, and then figuring out how to do it better. You need to constantly analyze yourself and figure out a better way to do it. And look at the whole package. You're working as a technician in a shop. However, you're one part of it, but you need to look at the whole package, how the shop is operating, offer suggestions on how to increase efficiencies. It's the whole package. And like Trish was saying, get involved with the industry. I constantly give back to this industry because it's been very good to me, and it's very rewarding. But you're helping to build and maintain this industry and keep it moving forward. So thank you.
Yeah, and I gotta say, guys, you know, no matter how small of a town you might live in, or how remote, you know, part of the country you might live in, you're not alone. You know, if you're looking honestly, sincerely, that you want to develop your skills, you know, you have organizations like IATN. Many of the nation's ASA, local ASA chapters are becoming much more active, offering, you know, meetings where you can interact with others in the industry. We have here on Motor Age, we have an online community that you can participate in. And you can certainly always reach out to nearly everyone on this panel, because all of these folks here and many others do care and do want to do what they can to help you succeed, but you have to have the willingness to do your part as well. Nobody's going to hand it to you. I think that was one of the best things I saw. I can't remember the person who did a fantastic commencement speech that pretty much told the youngsters joining that the world does not owe you a living. You have to go out and get it for yourself. So anyway, with that said, the next segment, and we're going to go backwards, starting with Mr. Brown, the shop owners. Scott, what would you tell a fellow shop owner that he can go out and do tomorrow to make a difference in this industry?
Well, it kind of depends on, you know, where they're at as far as, you know, what type of shop owner they are. There are a lot of shop owners out there that don't see the whole picture and understand what it actually takes to operate in this field. And unfortunately, you know, there are a number of them out there that then, you know, that is not lending itself well to a nice work environment. For the folks that aren't engaged, I try to get them to join, you know, trade associations so that they can feed off of their fellow shop owners and understand these different challenges. And so that's basically what I tell them. The other shop owners that I network with, the guys that get it and understand it, I run into them pretty much everywhere I go. I travel all over the place, and I'm seeing the same people over and over again, and that's the same story we hear all the time.
Right. And doesn't that say something for those guys, though? Because doing that kind of traveling, attending all of these different events is not cheap. So their methods and their it must be working for them, right?
Yeah,
to be the successes that they are. And if your business is struggling, and I know there's a lot of guys who are tremendous technicians but don't know that much about the business side, they go out on their own, they could use that kind of help. These are the guys you want to learn from. So, yeah, take advantage of that. Trish, we're going to go on to you with the same question. Again, you have a slightly different perspective. What do you tell shop owners? What can they go do tomorrow?
Well, I think we've already said it, but shop owners need to get involved with their local schools, either at the secondary, high school level, or the post-secondary. And you know what? It doesn't take a lot of time. Most advisory committee meetings are twice a year, where they're going to ask you to come in and chat and talk and look at the program. It's a great opportunity, as folks said earlier, to test drive some students and get a peek at the best of the best, and begin to build that farm team right in your own backyard. So get on that advisory committee, and if you can't get on the advisory committee for whatever reason, at least stop by, say hello to that instructor, introduce yourself, let him know that you care and that you appreciate what he's doing, and that you're there, even if you can't participate on a regular basis, that you appreciate his or her efforts, and you're there for them.
Yeah, recently, two things there. I certainly agree with Trish that if you're not involved, you need to be. If you can't get involved on a route, again, it takes so little time. The schools that I go visit, they actually feed me lunch too as part of the meeting, so that's always a good deal. But in addition to that, if you just go maybe talk to the kids, maybe go to a career day or something like that, the impact that you're having on those kids, you can't believe the impact that you're having. They love it. They really love it, the chance to talk to somebody who's out there doing it. And as a principal of a high school once told me, he said, I can tell them all day long that they need to do this, they need to do this, need to do this in order to succeed. But if someone from that field that they have the interest in comes in and tells them, they'll listen. So that's a big factor. George, on to you. What do you tell shop owners?
Well, I think Scott and Trish pretty much covered a lot of the key things, but something that has been going on here in Fresno is one of the guys started his own little group where they're getting together and they're learning lab scopes. It's just I think the key thing is just getting involved, whether it's in a local group or a Skype group or I-10 group. There's so many resources and information available today. We could be in a constant state of learning with all these resources. Back in the old days, we had to be, we really had to rely on ourselves and the few people that we communicated with. So today, the whole world's open to us, and I think that is the key thing for success. Yeah. And I don't know what else to say other than that. Once you get turned on, then so many opportunities come into play.
Yeah, God, again, a very excellent point that I want to reiterate. There are several small training groups, Delaware, Georgia, Long Island, the TST folks that many of you are familiar with, just to name a few. And these are just shop owners that say, you know what, we need to pool our resources so we can get the training that our guys need. And they do that. And then maybe once a month, every 2 months, they have a good trainer come in, and they get the training that they need, and they all take advantage of it. This platform that we're using, the Google platform, we could have up to 10 people here. So maybe you have your own little circle of shop owners or techs, and you can share the screen, you can all kinds of things that you can do. As George mentioned, the technology is here now where being able to interact with your peers is not a question. That's certainly available to you. And Donnie, on to you for the wrap-up on what we would tell shop owners to do.
Well, on top of all the great advice that everyone else has given, you need to be really good at running your shop. If you're not successful and you're not doing a good job, you need to step up to the plate, because if you're not good at running your shop, it's hard for you to get away from it so that you can get involved in these other things. Yes. So the whole business needs to be run well so that you're a vacuum for the really great kids that are out there. And one other thing I would add to the getting out there and VOTEC is, I mentioned the last time we got together, there are gifted and talented programs probably throughout your school district. Sometimes they'll bring all the kids into one school. Those programs are where your diagnostic technicians of the future are. They are technophiles. They're totally into technology. And I've been working with some kids at my son's school because he's in their gifted and talented program. He has no interest in cars, but several of his friends are just crazy over it. And it's so much fun to get together with them, and they ask me 10,000 questions. Most of them are, how fast does this car go and all that kind of stuff. But they're interested in how engines go together and how the electronics work. And if you're there to stimulate that, and the teachers, by the way, love to have you come in, because a lot of these kids, smart as they are, do not go to college. They go into VOTEC areas because they're already there. They're ready to go to work today.
Yeah, valid points. And I want to make sure, too, that I want to cover something that I wanted to cover earlier when Trish was speaking. Recently, Automotive News published an article that was pointing out weaknesses in automotive education today, not keeping up with the challenges in technology. Organizations like NATEF and others are doing everything they can to make sure that the resources are available to these programs to keep up. We need to do our part to help them keep up, and certainly they need to do their part. But I want to stress here that this is not rampant. If your local program is having issues with that, and you see that as a shop owner in the students that they're providing, well, again, that's why you need to be on the advisory council, so you can provide that feedback and help guide them in the right direction, help get them to where they need to be, so that your shop has the people that you need. Last one. I'm going to pick on the educators this time around because this is a partnership effort. Donnie, if you have one word of advice to give an educator about improving his program or having some impact that's going to make things better, what would you tell him he should do tomorrow?
Well, it's such a great question, because there are such a wide variety of teachers in VOTEC, and through NATEF and through teaching, I've had a lot of opportunities to teach the teachers, and the ones in your class that are just killers. You can tell they have a passion for the kids, and they're completely interested in the latest technology. And then you can tell the ones that sit there and look at you and they're like, I teach how to do engine overhaul. That's what I do. Well, that's gone. That's just not what we're doing in the bays anymore. And when you get those people that really are passionate about teaching kids what they need today, when I walk out of this school, what can I do when I walk into this business? I mean, wouldn't it be great if kids walked into your business and told your senior technicians, yeah, dude, that's not how we service cooling systems anymore, just like they do in medical school, and challenged us a little bit? I think that would be a great thing. But that also means those educators have to be top drawer on that stuff. And we offer lots of opportunities throughout the industry. When ASA does a program, we invite teachers, and most of the time we don't charge them to be there. Take those opportunities and join us. I know you got to add to your workload and all of that, and I know it's exhausting teaching, but it's pretty invigorating to learn something new.
Yeah, and I have to stress that as a tech, getting the training opportunities to stay current was difficult enough. And I was in the business. We had the people coming through town and dropping off the flyers and so forth. But I can imagine it's also a challenge for the educators once they leave the field and go into the classroom to stay current. But that's just part of the job, right? That's what you have to do in order to be able to fulfill your responsibilities to your students. George, what comments would you offer educators on making that one little change in their corner of the world?
Well, I wish Rick were here to answer that, because I've heard him talk about it, and he has got such amazing things to say and amazing experience. I really don't have much to say, because most of the educators that I get the opportunity to meet, and I've met hundreds over the years, they're so talented and they bring so much to the table. I just love listening to them and the things that they're doing. But here's something that I would ask of them. I think one of the keys to changing the perspective of automotive, getting it to the next level, getting that next generation of students, is taking some of these educators that we all know, like Rick, and just name a bunch of them, and getting to know them, the special things that they are doing for our industry, and highlighting it. I'd love to see little videos. You know, I've heard so many stories from these guys, and to me it's just amazing what they've accomplished for their students. And it seems to me if parents knew, if on the greater perspective, if parents knew what these guys were accomplishing, it would be a lot easier to get people involved in automotive. So,
Yeah.
you know, I don't have much to add other than to say I am thrilled at getting to know these guys and what they've accomplished.
Yeah, no question. The educators have a very tough job. I tried the teaching bit there for a little while, and my hat's off to them, as to the shop owners, because that takes a lot of gumption to lay everything on the line and open your own business. So, you know, I'm not trying to belittle that in any way, shape, or form. All of us are here to help and encourage and assist. Trish, you're up. Again, this is what you do. What do you tell your educators? What do they need to do? What can they do to make that change in their little corner of the world?
Well, if I could leave them with one message, I would ask them that when they hear the word no, for whatever reason, if they're talking to a shop owner or they're talking to a technician or administrator or a student, that they look at that as an opportunity to find another way to get to yes. Instructors and teachers, they're burdened and they're beat on all day long, and so they forget that no just means ask me again, or ask me another way, or ask me tomorrow. So I would encourage our instructors to relax a little bit, and just, people don't mean to say no, they mean to say not today. So go out and try again, and because of maybe this panel and other things that are going on, you'll get a yes the next time.
Yeah, awesome. That great advice, Trish. Thank you. All right, Scott, you bring up the end, but that's okay.
Okay. Well,
save the best for last.
I can give you a little bit of a different perspective. You know, we've at IATN we've had requests over the years from educators. We've got a lot of educators involved, and they network together and discover things. And we've had a lot of requests by the educators to get some of their students to get some perspective on what's happening with these guys, these seasoned technicians in the industry. And over the years, we've worked with these guys, and we've developed some programs that are pretty appealing and allow these technicians to gain some perspective so that they're a little more prepared by the time they get out of the training curriculum. They're a little more prepared when they hit the service phase. So, you know, this is what I always tell shop owners, or I'm sorry, the educators, to pay attention to what's going on out there and get their students familiar with what they're about to face. Understand the lingo, understand how these folks communicate, how to communicate effectively. These are all critical things, so I think that's great.
And I want to mention too, while I got you there on the screen, Scott, you know, I know that there is a student program. Give us a little bit about that for those who are watching, the educators who are watching, so they can take advantage of that great deal.
Sure, great. What we do is we have a program that the college can sign up for, and that gets all of the instructors attending, you know, teaching at the school, a premium access account, and then each of those instructors can invite their students, bring them in, and also give them the premium access, so they can search the waveform libraries and some of the other discussions that are going on.
Right. The
students, since they're not fully qualified for a full membership, because in order to be a member, you have to have at least ASE certification or at least 4 years of experience. So that's got to come. So they get a membership, but it's a read-only membership, so they can absorb. And you know, I remember when I was going to school, my internet was all the trade magazines. I used to subscribe to everything in those trade magazines, check out the reader service cards. I used to read everything I could get my hands on. This is a dynamic reader service guide, and it's a great way for guys to get involved. And if they need to know more about it, they can, of course, just reach out to us and contact us, and we'll help them get started.
Yeah, awesome. And a couple of great comments here that are showing up on the player page. Yes, educators certainly understand the challenges, especially with the new technology that's coming out to try to make kids. I don't think any of the shop owners expect them to be able to do everything. But as Donnie pointed out, God, I can't remember the last time I built an engine in the shop or rebuilt the tranny. If I needed something like that, I sent that out. I think the critical thinking skills and other areas that can be developed in that place. Well, again, that's a discussion for another time. I want to wrap it up. First, I want to thank all my panelists. I'm sorry that Rick had issues. I would have loved to have his input. I know he has a lot of valuable information.
Hey, Pete, can I throw something in for Rick?
Oh, please.
Yeah, going back kind of what Trish mentioned about saying no. Rick Escalambre and Dick Krager did a seminar, and I got to sit in on it, and they shared their experience on how to not take no for an answer. I mean, it was an excellent opportunity for teachers to, for those who were there, to pick up techniques on dealing with the bureaucracy and getting things to happen for their school. And so, last tip for teachers, you get an opportunity to go see these guys and grab their experience. You know, there's a handful of events going around the country where you can go see them face to face. And we've got to, if you're a shop owner out there, go get involved with your school and help encourage them to get on the educator forum on IETN and get involved with these events that are taking place.
Right,
and get the opportunity to see Rick. Maybe we can talk him into doing a on-screen seminar one day.
Yeah, we'll have to hook him up with that. Yeah, that would be awesome. I have a prepared closing. I want to make sure I read that because I want this message to get across. First, allow me to thank, again, all of the panelists who joined me tonight for taking the time to participate. I also want to recognize that it has been my privilege in the last 3.5 years to meet hundreds of members of our industry, techs and shop owners and educators alike, that are about as devoted to being the consummate professional as any of tonight's guests are. They are just as committed to doing their part in improving our business, you know, for the benefit of us all. And for those men and women that you know who you are, thank you for your efforts. But there's certainly much to do. To share another witticism that I share with my own boys as they grew up, you can eat an elephant, but you got to do it one bite at a time. So allow me to challenge all of you who are watching tonight to ask yourself, what will you do differently tomorrow to make that positive change, and then make that change. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.